Hi, Rob here from Way Out West. I had the pleasure of having a chat to Andre Warhurst, singer and guitarist from Spoonful. Spoonful will be bringing their brand of rock and roll, blues and soulful R&B to our club this coming Sunday the 29th from 2 p.m. Make sure you listen to the whole interview as Andre tells us about meeting Keith Richards and also another legendary musician. Oh, and by the way, there are only a handful of tickets left for Ash Gromwell's show on Thursday, the 3rd of October. Go to our website for details. In other breaking news, I now have 100 subscribers. Here is the 100th man himself, Rob. Thank you all for subscribing to my channel, and there's always room for more. As always, my friends, rock on. Big part of your family when growing up?
Yeah, absolutely. So we grew up in the country, and we moved around Victoria a lot. So I've got two brothers and a sister, and mum and dad were in education, so we moved around a little bit. But mum and dad were both quite musical, and they used to put on stage productions and theatre productions and stuff at the various schools that they were working at. And dad's a pianist. He plays piano. When he was younger, he played in dance bands in Melbourne. So from as young as I can remember, Dad was banging away on the keys, and Mum used to make all of the costumes for the productions, various productions. So it was kind of a big deal. So the whole music thing slash show thing was happening from a very early age, and we were around it a lot.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I've noticed that so many people that I speak to and interview that music was really there. It is a nurturing type of thing, I guess, isn't it, really, when you're growing up with it?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially if it's, I guess, if it's on in the background,
Mm.
um, you're not like you're not going to lessons, or you're not, I mean, you hear music, it's all around you, especially when you're a kid. But there was a little bit in church, and when Mum used to take us to church sometimes, or we'd get it at high school. But a lot of the music that I was associated with was my older brother's record collection. He had a really fantastic record collection. So from primary school onwards, I was listening to a lot of classic rock, and um, a lot of Australian artists as well. So, but living in the country, we didn't see a lot of live stuff. So that's where I think Dad's piano playing kind of influenced us a bit.
And when did you pick up the guitar, mate? And who is some of your early influences?
I think I sort of was around the guitar. Dad bought us a guitar when I was in primary school. I didn't play it too much, but um, I always looked at it and thought it looked pretty wild. But I think in high school, I started to kind of pick up stuff that friends were playing. I had a good friend who was a drummer who was in a band with his older brothers, and they were playing lots of rock covers. And so I think in high school I was learning the basics, like chords, and I'd always pick songs where the guitar was a feature. And then I guess when I got to university, like I was in various high school bands, but I didn't take things very seriously, um, in terms of being able to really, I guess, nail down intricate guitar parts. I mean, one of the first things I performed, I was talking about this the other day, was the Rise and Fall of Flingle Bunt, the Shadows track. It was on a Mildura radio station live to air thing, which was great. And then we also did Apache. So that was some of the earliest stuff that I loved to play, and I wanted to learn, and I wanted to play. I wanted to be in a band that kind of was you could play that stuff. So I've always loved it, and I think when I got to university, I moved from the country and I moved down to Melbourne, and after I finished my year 12, and I just happened upon, I guess a bunch of friends who like to play music, and things sort of got rolling from there pretty. I really did go down that path where I stopped playing sport, and that wasn't my focus, which initially it had been when I got to Melbourne, and I started to play in various bands, and that's when I really started to think about building my skill set and my ability to improvise and on the guitar. And so I was getting up before work and doing a couple of hours on the guitar, and as soon as I got home I'd do the same thing again. So I was really pushing my boundaries, and I was listening to a lot of Stevie Ray Vaughan, a lot of Eric Clapton, the Blues Breakers. I'd learnt a lot of Rolling Stones covers, but I was into all sorts of different music, mainly rock. But yeah, I think this once I went and saw, I started seeing local artists, and I started to see bands like Checkerboard Lounge and those kind of things. It really kind of resonated. The blues and roots thing really kind of captivated me there for a while, and that's where I put my attention.
So tell us about Spoonful. Who is in the band, and what does a set list look like for Spoonful?
So Spoonful's been around for over 25 years now, and Spoonful originated as a bit of a fun throwaway good time blues rock cover band, because one of the bands the band that I first formed got signed to Mushroom Records, and at that stage when we got signed we were playing a lot of covers as well as our original material that helped to get us signed, and we realized that we couldn't keep working 3 or 4 nights in Melbourne if we wanted to become a truly original band. So we formed Spoonful quite quickly as a way to keep our residencies going and making an income. So Spoonful sort of developed as an offshoot of Manic Suede in the early 90s, and the members are still the current members of the original members. So David Lauder on harmonica and keyboards, Paul Winstanley on bass, and they're 2 guys that I went to uni with, and I met at university, and lucky enough to have my younger brother Kit Warhurst on drums. So yeah, that's the sort of brief history of Spoonful. And set list is we play lots of blues and roots based music, so we love playing covers. We also play our own material as well with Spoonful now, and we've released 3 albums live at the Clifton Hill, Straight Out the Gate, and Indian Tiger Waterfall. But that hasn't really been a priority. Like a typical set list will be a fair smattering of our own songs, heavily influenced by Booker T and the MGs, early Cream, Fleetwood Mac, those sort of artists.
With a name like Spoonful, is there any nod there to Howlin' Wolf?
As I mentioned before, I think that the name was chosen in haste. So we actually don't even play a cover of Howlin' Wolf Spoonful, but we bloody should, because it's an amazing song. But it sounds a bit lazy, but yeah, definitely a nod of the hat. We Spoonful absolutely loves Buddy Guy, Howlin' Wolf, like I said before, Freddie King also. Those artists were pretty influential on us in the early days. Like they are on a lot of blues bands, so we were no different. But I think to be honest, to be working and that's what Spoonful was set up to do, is to play frequently in lots of different places across Melbourne, we just decided that we need to start writing our own material too, to keep it fresh. So Spoonful sort of 50-50, I guess, in terms of covers and originals these days.
That's great because when we started Way Out West, we started it because we all used to drink at Willie RSL, and on a Saturday night they'd have a cover band, but that's not what we were into. We'd always go and see somewhere. So I'm really happy to hear you say that it's because we love that new material. I could stay at home and turn the radio on and listen to all those songs, but I want to hear what you guys are doing. That's fantastic. And I was going to ask you about Manic Suede too. So tell us a little bit about Manic Suede.
Okay, so Manic Suede was a band that I formed in the sort of early 90s. It was the first time that I'd started to write songs, and I was going and seeing lots of local blues and rock bands. And Manic Suede, we were lucky enough to record some demos during some downtime at what was known as Metropolis Audio, which was a wonderful studio in South Melbourne. And those demos were recorded by a friend that I was at uni with, who was a sound engineer. He's doing sound engineering course called, his name's Tim Johnston, and he was working with lots of quite influential Australian artists at Metropolis, and he forwarded the demos on to a couple of different producers, and one of them was Bill Page. And Bill Page was key A&R at Mushroom Records, and Bill loved our demos, and he'd come and see us play at the club in Collingwood at 2 a.m. And as I mentioned before, that was in the days where we were playing a few originals and lots of covers, and he loved our original material. And Manic Suede sort of did a residency for 2 or 3 years at the club in Collingwood, where we really did get to develop our own material and develop our style and hone our craft. But we were a really, really hard-working band, and we didn't spend a lot of time writing, but the songs that we did have obviously caught people's attention early on, those early demos. And I guess on the back of those demos, we got signed to Mushroom. We got signed to Mushroom, and we spent the next 4 or 5 years with Mushroom Records, touring the East Coast and working with lots of different bands, international bands, local bands. And yeah, it was a really, really interesting experience. And, you learn a lot of lessons when you become a full-time band and a full-time musician, and that's you're earning your living from that. But yeah, Manic Suede was definitely that step into that world.
And I believe, and I'm sort of trying to do a bit of back checking there. 2014, were you on stage or help support the Rolling Stones with Jet?
Yeah, so I was lucky enough to play on Jet's first record. I played on their demos that they released through Rubber Records. They released an EP, and then they got signed to a major label overseas. And I was lucky enough to play on their first record when they recorded it in LA. And I've always, the Jet guys are really big fans of Manic Suede. They used to come and see us play a lot. And then obviously they blew things up when they recorded their first album, and I was lucky enough to be invited to go and participate in that recording. And I've always been really close friends with them. After I got to know them, and around the Manic Suede days, and they invited me to go and record on their album. And as a result, when they played their Melbourne shows with the Stones, I was still pinching myself there.
Was that at the Tennis Centre?
It was, yeah, Rod
Yeah,
Laver.
I would have been there.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic. And did you have any interaction at all with any of those guys? Mick Jagger's probably a bit aloof, but did you get to talk to any of them?
Well, how long we got? Because I do
No,
have
I've got as long as you want,
yeah.
mate.
All right. Well, one of the most special things about being asked to do something like that is you get to play, in front of a lot of people, supporting one of the bands that's been most influential on you. So it's kind of hard meeting your heroes, and we were lucky enough to meet the Rolling Stones after the Jet set, and then before the Stones went on, we had a meet and greet with them. Got to meet all the individual members of the Stones, and so we were sort of hanging around, and I was quite nervous, as you can imagine. The thought of meeting Keith Richards and Ronnie Wood and Charlie Watts, even seeing them was pretty daunting. So we were waiting to meet them, and we were told by their publicist that it'd be a pretty short, sharp photo opportunity, and not too much time put aside for autographs and small talk. Just the Stones had to get on and do their show, but they were genuinely into chatting, especially Keith Richards wasn't in any rush at all to hit the stage. However, Mick Jagger was definitely on it, working with the tight timeline. So there was a little bit of tension at one particular point there. But yeah, I've told this story a bit before, but it was pretty special. The guys from Jet had a beautiful coffee table book that they'd earmarked pages in to be signed by each member of the Stones, and that was sort of laid out. And after we'd had a little bit of small talk, Ron Wood started to flip through the pages of this beautiful book on the Stones, and was signing his autograph on the page that he'd been allocated. And Mick Jagger was a little bit upset that they weren't moving towards the stage and getting on with it. And he sort of said, "No, not again. Only Ronnie." So all right. So, and at that point, sorry about that accent was quite terrible, but that was my impression of Mick. And so at that stage, I'm standing next to Keith, and I'm literally speechless. And Keith was looking at Ronnie and looking at Mick, and he just said, "Well," he said, he goes, he had a cigarette in his hand, and he just said, "Oh," he looked down at it, and he looked at me, and he looked back at the cigarette. He goes, "Oh, I used to be able to smoke this between Give Me Shelter and Sympathy for the Devil." He goes, "I guess those days are gone, man." So I think that was his way of telling me that, he didn't appreciate being rushed or told what to do, but it was just beautifully put, and I got to shake his hand at that point. I mumbled, "Have a great show, Keith." And,
Did you get a
sorry.
photo? Have you got a photo? Or?
Yeah. So we got a full photo with the band and the Stones, and I'll treasure that always.
I'd love to be able to put it up on the video. If you can Dropbox it to me or something, that'd be pretty special.
Yeah, look, I'll forward it through. There was some talk, and this is a long time ago now, so I'm sure it doesn't really matter. But there was some talk about don't share this. So
okay, all right.
I'm happy to forward it through, because I'm pretty proud that I was playing music with a great rock and roll band who are a lovely bunch of guys, and we got to meet the Stones and obviously hang out.
Sensational. Now, I believe you and your brother had another fantastic moment too, meeting Mitch Mitchell.
Yeah, well, that was even bigger for me in some ways. What can you say? I toured with my brother's band, Rocket Science. Kit plays in Rocket Science, and Rocket Science were playing at the Fuji Rock Festival in Japan, and I was filling in for Paul Maybury, who's rocket science guitar player who unfortunately broken his leg on his wedding night. Long
Oh,
story.
goodness. Yeah. Wow.
Anyway, so they needed a hand, and I put my hand up straight away. So off we go to Japan, and we're playing the Fuji Rock Festival and doing a few other things in Japan. And as it turns out, in the dressing room next to Rocket Science was Mitch Mitchell.
Mm.
And Mitch was playing with, it seemed quite bizarre, but I think it was something that he did quite routinely. He would play in Japan with a guy playing Hendrix material.
Yeah.
And so I'm not sure, I didn't do a deep dive, but I just to know that he was in the building, to know he was in the dressing room next to Rocket Science. Kit and I looked at each other and were like, oh, we have to meet him. All right, so we played the set, and Mitch was playing his set at the same time, but on one of the other stages, and we finished our set and got enough Dutch courage up to go and say, right, let's do this. And in we walked to his dressing room, and Ben Harper was in there with Mitch Mitchell, and he was talking to Mitch, and the guitar player that Mitch was playing with was in there as well. So he was looking at us, kind of thinking, oh, and we're standing there really sheepishly looking at each other, going, oh, okay, we're going to get booted out here. But Mitch finished his conversation with Ben Harper, and then sort of looked at us and, what are you guys doing in here, kind of conversation. And we said, look, sorry to interrupt, Mitch, we're playing at the festival too. We're in the band room next door. And he goes, oh, you're musicians? And I said, yep. And we really love your music, and we're obviously big fans. And he was absolutely such a gentleman. He was wonderful to talk to. He said some amazing things about his playing in the Jimi Hendrix Experience, because we just couldn't believe we were talking to him. And he said at one point, he goes, oh, look, sometimes I look back at what I did and I hope I'd never overplayed.
Oh, wow.
And we just looked at each other going, what? Anyway, so he signed our tour program as on the proviso that we signed his for his niece, and that we didn't put his autograph up on the internet for sale and that sort of thing. So yeah, it was amazing to meet Mitch Mitchell, and he's such a gentleman. He's such a great person to talk to as well, so kind of blew our minds, and off we went.
It's so nice to hear that. I mean, I can't play, and I've sort of been doing this way out west for a long time, and I've got to meet my heroes that I've grown up, whether it was Phil Manning or whatever, and everyone has been so nice, and it's so nice to hear you say, you've met people like that, and they're not up themselves, sort of thing. That's just great. I love it.
Yeah, absolute gentleman. And he was obviously in the latter stages of his life, but he was really articulate when he goes, oh, what do you think playing in Japan? How's it been for you? And we were talking just about how meticulous it was, how things would run to time, and he said something really funny about, oh, look, I've got a roadie for every drum and every stand that I've got on my drum kit. He goes, sometimes I'd just like to get off the stool and adjust my own hi-hat. So yeah, he was absolutely brilliant. Yeah. And we're still, Kit and I, we still talk about that.
Fantastic, mate. And what's your opinion of the Melbourne music scene at the moment? Is there still gigs out there? Is it still happening?
Well, look, it's changed a lot over the years, and there's not the residencies that bands used to cut their teeth, hone their set, and there's not that same cultural connection with the scene. But there's still plenty of gigs out there. I mean, things just move around. But I look, there's obviously a lot more emphasis on social media, and look, there's still gigs, but it's certainly not as easy to get a crowd at the moment with everything that's happening. In terms of, people are generally under, stresses, financial stresses, and the cost of living has affected patronage to and audiences. So, look, we're still out there. The Melbourne music scene's probably one of the healthiest in the country, in my opinion. But it's sad to see, venues doing it hard, doing it tough.
I want to jump back to because you were talking about uni. What did you study at uni, Andre?
So I studied a Bachelor of Applied Science in Physical Education. So and I also did a teaching and history component at La Trobe Uni. So yeah, I sort of I was living at Glen College at La Trobe Uni, and that's where some of my earliest gigs were. And so yeah, I've sort of juggled secondary school teaching and music the whole way through.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
And you said you were into sport too. Were you footy, cricket, baseball? What were you?
So I played a lot of sport when I was as a kid. I was into mainly footy and cricket, but did all sorts of things like diving and gymnastics, and I love playing squash. And I gave most things a go, really, because I mean, my mum was a great hockey player. She played for Australia, and
oh wow,
she captained Victoria. So I was lucky enough to grow up in a house where, we were really supported to get out and get amongst it and play sport. And growing up in country towns, that's a big way, obviously, to connect with the community. So
yeah, I've still got mates, I knock around with that I played sport with. In fact, just across the road from where we live, we've got the Footscray hockey fields over there. And my two girls went and had a crack. And this is how naive I was about hockey, because Kate's a left-hander and they had her playing right-handed, and I'm yelling at the coach, she's left-handed. I didn't know there was no left-handed hockey players, but it does make sense.
There you go. Yeah. Well, that's I remember we had an apple tree, and Mum used to have all her old hockey sticks and stuff lying around, and she'd get out there and show me how to dribble using like apples on the ground. She was just amazing. She'd rip past you without you even knowing she was that skillful. But like I say, I've always loved sport, and I think Melbourne's all about music and sport and culture, and
that's right,
like big events these days. But hey, it's not so bad.
That's right. Now, we're all going to be partying on Sunday because there's about 5 of 6 of us all turned 70 around the same time of the year. And one of my best mates that I went to school with, he's 70 today or yesterday. So it's going to be a big party for us baby boomers. We're so looking forward to seeing you guys. And I believe there's a bit of eye candy in your band too for all us old, for all our old wives here. Can you tell us a little bit about Paul? What's his story?
Well, look, there's no denying it. He in not only my opinion, but the opinion of most people getting around town who know the man. We fondly call him the fireman / model / musician. He is, he's in terms of eye candy, he's probably ticked a few boxes there, and I'm sure that he would have done one of those fireman calendars at some point, but I can't guarantee that.
Oh God, thank you so much for that. The
Nice,
ladies are going to love it. Thanks so much for joining me for a chat. I really do appreciate it. We're really looking forward to it. There's a couple of our way West peoples. I don't know if you remember Rosemary Marsham and John Spicer. They see you guys a lot, and they're my eyes and ears on the ground, because Rosemary will come back and say, "Now you got to book this band. You got to book this band." So you've always been on our list, so we're so looking forward to seeing you. Thank you so much.
It'll be an absolute pleasure to come and play, and I'm really looking forward to it. And I'm glad that it will be a bit of a celebration. I've got friends who I live in the western suburbs too, Rob. So
Ah,
I've
okay.
got friends who are pretty excited to come and because they're big fans of the venue and what you do. So thanks for having us, and I'm really looking forward to playing.
No worries, mate. All the best. We'll see you shortly.
Good on you. Thanks so much.
No worries, man.
See ya.
Bye.